Record. Stand by 45 seconds. You can go to that. Radio station, stand by for commencement in 30 seconds. "25 seconds, radio stations. 20, 15, 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay, morning everybody, morning to the press, and of course good morning to the citizens and residents of Dominica, and of course to our friends and family in the diaspora. And a special good morning to the regional international agencies who are still here on island, assisting us in many different ways. I want to first of all thank the regional international communities for their continued commitment and support in our recovery efforts. Their assistance continue to flow, and our targeted interventions, and we're very grateful for this. We would have heard this week from UNICEF in terms of the cash grants that they're providing to families. Those grants will go primarily to families who are captured under the public assistance program. All of the administrative work has been completed, and I want to thank UNICEF and the Ministry of Social Services, led by Minister Catherine Daniel, for their efforts in advancing this particular intervention. This will touch and impact many families across the length and breadth of Dominica, where they will have added cash at their disposal to take care of their daily needs and to provide better for their families. And of course, the UNDP has been able to source some funds on behalf of the government of Dominica to advance the Cash for Work program. The Cash for Work program will utilize the existing structure of the National Employment Program to facilitate this program. They will engage a number of individuals in some identified communities. Those communities were jointly identified by the government and UNDP, and the funds have been received by the government, so we expect the NEP to roll this off as early as this week going into next week. We want to thank the UNDP for the continued efforts and collaboration. And of course, the other international agencies, the World Food Program continues to be present and assisting us in the delivery of food supplies to many families in Dominica. As you know, we held the Donors Conference earlier this month, well, in November. From my vantage point, my perspective, I thought that the Donors Conference was extremely successful. It was the first opportunity to meet with all of the partners, both countries, institutions, organizations, private corporations. It was extremely well attended. There was a very sound participation by those present, and the firm commitment and concern and solidarity with Dominica, Antigua, Anguilla, the British Virgin Islands, the Turks and Caicos Islands, were Cuba, all of these islands that were affected by the various hurricanes, and I felt that the commitment of the international community was very pronounced. It is estimated, and we're still doing the maths, because what we have to appreciate in Dominica is that the funds will be made available over a period of time. So there will be funds that will come in the short term, there will be funds medium term, and there may be funds in longer term. Because some countries would have given, say, for example, a 3-year commitment of funds or a 4-year commitment of funds. And so you'd have to break it down in those 3 or 4 years intervals and to determine how much you would get for each particular year. So in total, so far, and we're still doing the maths, as I said, getting confirmation from the various partners in terms of you made a commitment of $100 million, how much of that specifically will go to the Commonwealth of Dominica? So we engage on a bilateral basis, and also the CARICOM Secretariat is assisting with the coordination of that. So it is estimated at the Donors Conference alone, there was a commitment to Dominica in about $1 billion EC dollars. That is our estimate. Obviously, these are not money, all of the monies will not be deposited in the treasury tomorrow morning, and people have to appreciate that. But the other thing we're doing in the government system is to seek to assign these resources. So looking at health, looking at education, looking at water resource management. For example, the British government has committed between 10 to 12 million pounds as an additional commitment to the government of Dominica. And we have taken a decision in consultation with the British government, DFID, to assign this entire amount to our water system. So that entire amount will go to the water system. The British government will assist us with technical engineering advice, because we have to build more resilient water systems. And I said to them very clearly, look, I do not want the money. Come here, advise us on what the new water system we should adopt, and then let us utilize those funds to implement that strategy in keeping with our building climate resilient nation. So the entire sum will go towards the water system. The Mexican government has also made a commitment. They remain very firm on the Marigot Hospital as they made previous commitment. We have finalized on our end all of the documents. I was able to sign the last set of documents last night to submit to the government of Mexico, and we're very grateful to them for their continued commitment. And so we look forward to advancing the construction of this hospital that is needed even more now than prior to Hurricane Maria. And that hospital will be a smart hospital. It will be a climate resilient hospital. We will be assured that it will continue to function even if there is no electricity in, at least from Damlek, and water from Dowasco, that we have those independent systems that will power up the hospital in the event that we are faced with a natural disaster. So the designs of this hospital are taking all of these climatic conditions into consideration. So we thank the government of Mexico for the continued support. The government of Mexico also made a commitment of about $27 million US. Of course, we have to determine how much of that will go specifically to the government of Dominica. Once we determine that, we will assign those funds to particular interventions. As we saw last week, the government of China signed a number of agreements. There was some misunderstanding by some section of the population in respect to military assistance. Yes, we know that we don't have a military in Dominica, but we have military cooperation with many countries around the world, including the United States, where they help us train police. They provide us with assets, vehicles, and communication equipment, and so forth. And the $3 or so million US that will come under this military cooperation, we will determine what we want for this $3 million. So it will be in the form of equipment. And it doesn't necessarily have to be specifically for the police. It could be for public works in terms of heavy equipment and other, it could be ambulances, it could be a fire truck for the Douglas Childs Airport or for Roosevelt. So we are finalizing that list with advice from the various public servants, and we expect by next week to submit that list to the government of China. The Ministry of Education has finalized the proposals for the schools to be considered for the use of between the 38 and 40 million US dollars that we have assigned specifically to education. And we're hoping that by next week, God willing, we will submit that list and that proposal. There are some specific forms the Ministry of Education has to fill out, and that will be finalized today for onward dispatch to the government of the People's Republic of China. So the donors conference was very successful. I want to thank, place on public record, our gratitude to the Secretary General of the CARICOM, the Chairman of CARICOM, the CARICOM Secretariat, the OECS, Dr. Joel, the Director General, and his staff, the UNDP, who have been, exceptionally helpful to us at every single level. The entire UNDP structure across the world has consolidated the efforts in Dominica, and we're very grateful to them. They were very instrumental in coordinating the Donors Conference. The World Bank has played a very pivotal role. The Caribbean Development Bank played its part there. The United Nations itself, from as high up as the Secretary General of the United Nations, who made the effort to address the Donors Conference and made some very strong appeal on behalf of the countries affected by this hurricane. So we want to thank all of the partners, all the countries that were present, the private sector firms, all of them were present and making the commitment, so we're very grateful for this. The other point I would like to make this morning is in respect to some of the loan agreements which we have had with the aid bank prior to the hurricane. That is for tourism, manufacturing, and also agriculture. What we have done after the hurricane is to engage the stakeholders. So we engage the Manufacturers Association, we engage the Hotel and Tourism Association, and we also engage the DIC on revisiting the conditions of these loans and to see to what extent we could make certain amendments to these loan agreements to allow them to be more accessible by the potential borrowers. And based on proposals from the various stakeholders and on advice from the Ministries of Tourism and the Ministry of Agriculture and the Ministry of Commerce, the Cabinet took a decision yesterday to review these loans. So one of the decisions we took yesterday at the Cabinet is to reduce the interest rate from an all-time low of 3% to a further low of 2%. So we're reducing the interest rates from 3% to 2% on tourism, manufacturing, and agriculture. In respect to the tourism facility, we will be also extending that facility to the property owners, the folks who are providing housing to the medical students at Ross to help repair their apartments, buy new mattresses, those who had flooding and appliances, so they will also be able to access those loans. It's still a significant sum of money, all put together. You're talking about 12 plus 15 or 27 plus 8. That's $35 million available to the private sector. The amendments, and there are other amendments to the agreements that we approved, but I think one of the most significant one is the reduction of the interest rates and also setting aside some of the conditions that we previously had on the loans to make it more accessible to everybody. We will sign the amendments on Friday this week, and the funds under the new terms and conditions will be available from Monday the 11th. My public advice to both the private sector and the aid bank is that in respect to the private sector, ensure that you have all of the documents before you submit to the bank, and that the bank has to be a little bit more tardy with the disbursement processes. Sometimes we allow people to walk to these institutions too many times before we can tell them yes or no, and we must not seek to shift the goalposts. The application form must be specific with what information you require, and unless the person has submitted all of the information, do not accept the application, because you're wasting both the person's time and your time. And so that the persons who are applying for the loans must ensure that you have all of the documents. When you're satisfied that you have all of the documents, the checklist, you submit it, and the aid bank should be a bit more robust with its application process. So they need to be a little more circumspect with that. So these 3 loan facilities in the amended form would be available from Monday, the 11th of December. I want to say also that some of the monies have been pledged to us as a country. We also will be assigning some of those funds to the private sector, obviously subject to the conditions placed by the benefactors. But we intend to provide additional funding to the private sector to help them rebuild their businesses and to continue to provide jobs to the citizens of the country. We have to be mindful that the government is carrying the brunt of the responsibility at this time, but with a clear understanding that the revenues of the state has been dramatically affected. And we have maintained all of our legal and policy obligations that were in effect before the hurricane, after the hurricane. So we have been paying our debts on time. We've been seeking to pay those we owe on time. We've been paying salaries on time. We've been paying our social security deductions on time. We have kept up to ensuring that the NEP is maintained, because the NEP has been certainly very helpful, especially in the post-Maria situation with the cleanup in the city and many parts of the country. So we're keeping up to those obligations. We still continue to assist people who seek medical care overseas, which is not a legal obligation, but it is important for many persons who are unable to afford to travel out of the country for specific medical interventions. We are remaining firm to our students who study overseas that we shall meet their obligations, and including those who we had no legal obligation to or no commitment to. We will be providing them with an allowance to cover their rent in those countries where they're studying, and also to provide them with a limited amount of funds to purchase food, because in some cases the families here in Dominica are unable to provide that to them. And we're expecting to send a check out to the Dominica Association of Barbados and the Dominica Association of Trinidad and Tobago, in the first instance to assist our students studying in these 2 countries to meet their rent and food income. And of course we'll do so going into the new year to ensure that all of our students remain at school. Now, all of these things are being done appreciating the impact of the hurricane on the state finances. Just to give the country an idea of the situation insofar as revenue is concerned for the months of October and November. In terms of tax revenue, we were able to raise only $1.1 million for personal income tax. In terms of corporate income tax, $0.07 million. In terms of VAT, $3.3 million, and import duty, $0.8 million, because you recognize that the merchants pay no VAT at the ports and also no import duties for a wide range of items which come into the country. In terms of tax revenue raised in the month of November 2017, personal income tax, $4.3 million, and that $4.3 million would include the taxes on what is popularly known as the double bubble, or the double salary, which the government decided to keep its legal obligation to the public servants, having negotiated this with the unions on behalf of the employees of the state. So the government committed with the agreement to the unions to provide the public servants with these 2 salaries tax-free, but the state, the government, paid the income tax department the tax amount on these double salaries. So in effect, these public servants got a double or triple commitment there. And our hope is that the public servants will respond in like manner and be productive, be diligent, be true to the terms of references, and also be patriotic any dispensation of their responsibilities, because this is our country. This country doesn't belong to one person or a small group of people. It belongs to every single one of us. All of us have vested interest in one way or the other in this country. And in respect to corporate income tax, we've only raised in the month of November $0.002 million. And VAT, $0.3 million, and import duty, $0.4 million. So this is the government's net tax revenue for the month of October and November. And this is nowhere, absolutely nowhere close to what the government spends on a monthly basis, including the massive cleanup, the clearing of the streets and the cleanup of the various parts of the country. You know, it has been, it is, and we still have a lot of work to do in terms of cleaning. We've done a lot of work, but there's still communities that we have to continue, and of course there may be limitations with the equipment we have in Dominica, not sufficient equipment. You know, we're hoping to bring in more to help us with the dredging of the rivers, because, for example, the Roosevelt River, you have to dredge the Roosevelt River from as far as Trafalgar all the way down to the mouth of the Roosevelt River to ensure and assure the safety of the city. So there are a lot number of areas, the Melville River close to Douglas Charles, along the Douglas Charles Airport. There are many parts, and we have to continue a lot of work in Point Michel, you know, going up to Grand Bay and Pichelay. You know, we've been constructing, as you see, Bailey bridges in many parts of the country, enhancing road safety, communication, you know. All those things are costing the state money. And the revenues that we are generating is nowhere close to what the state has been spending on a monthly basis. So I'm saying this to let people understand that the state can really only spend what the state has. Lucky for us as a country and the government, we have been responsive to the needs of the people, but we have not been irresponsible with our management of the economy. So we've, you know, we did not spend all our money at one time. Luckily, we had some saved, so we're using some of that to meet our obligations to our various partners. We expect to enter into a special loan facility that will be administered by both the Aid Bank and the Government Housing Loan Board. And we're hoping that agreement can be concluded very soon. And the idea is to peg this interest rate at 2% with a generous grace period of 6 months. And that will target people who need funds to cover their homes, to buy windows and doors, or, you know, to fix their homes, and both for the public sector and the private sector. So the public sector will be managed by the Government Housing Loan Board, and of course the private sector will be managed by the Aid Bank. And I have asked the Aid Bank in particular to give me a proposal that would show me how quickly they will be able to disburse those funds to applicants. And this will be a very special loan facility. The only thing that will come closer to that is a grant in terms of the conditionalities set on these loans. And because we recognize that many people, there are some people whose homes have been insured but may not get the full amount from the insurance company to cover the damage of their homes, to repair their homes. Because as I understand it, the insurance companies, they come to you, they assess the damage, then they put a real market value to your home, and then they say to you, your home is underinsured, so you'll get a fraction of what you really should be getting if they stuck to what the amount that you were actually insured for. You know, so people are having challenges in not receiving the full amount from the insurance companies in some respects, not all respects, in some respects. And because some of these people may not be able to get additional loans from financial institutions, they may have a check in their hands or in the bank, but unable to start because the roof is $50,000 and not $40,000 to replace. Because I get the sense that we in Dominica now are getting to understand that if we're doing something, we have to do it properly, and we have to do it to ensure that it can withstand the ferocious winds which we have experienced by Maria. So people have been very careful how they go about fixing their homes or even building their new homes. So I'm hoping that by the 18th of December, I've given the ministries by next week to advise me on the conditionalities, and I'm hoping by the 18th of December we can have those funds available at those institutions. The funds are available with us, but pass it on to the institutions. Now, if these two institutions are not going to comply with the efficiency standards I have set for them, then we shall terminate those agreements and the government shall run and manage these facilities by ourselves. Because, you know, that's one of the issues I have with the system, is that, you know, I sit and I come with these ideas and I fetch the monies and I put it into these institutions, and they become proconsuls and viceroys. You know, they are these big bosses, and they delay the process and they frustrate people, you know, and there's something that can be indifferent to the struggles of people and the sacrifice and the challenges people go through. So the instructions to them is that within 3 days of the receipt of the application, the person must have the check in his hands. And if that is not done, then we shall terminate the agreements with both institutions. And I'm very firm on this because some things sometimes just take too long in this place. People just sit on their heads and their hands and expect that it will just happen without them making it happen. And we have to be more diligent if we are to successfully overcome this humongous challenge imposed on us by this hurricane. The other point I would like to draw to the attention of the public is in respect to the grants to farmers and fishermen, and I want to call on them to ensure that farmers and fishermen fill out the forms that are that have been made available by the Ministry of Agriculture. That is the final step. So we need to get those forms in as quickly as possible. You know, if you have not filled the form, you should reach out to your extension officer, or if you have to come down to the Ministry of Agriculture to get a form yourself, get these forms. It's a green form. It's a little bit too long with too many questions, but you know. But you have to fill the form nonetheless. If you cannot fill it, get somebody to assist you. But it's important for us to have those forms in quickly, so that the monies can be made available to the farmers. The funds are available, but we have to ensure that we do it properly and we can account for every single dollar that we make available to the farming community, the fishermen and farmers. So please go ahead and fill these forms. It's a decent amount of money per farmer, and every little dollar you get will help you. So let us move quickly and have those forms filled out and deposit them with the Ministry of Agriculture, so that you know, we open that before the end of the year you should be getting your checks. You know, I'm really appealing to the farmers and fishermen, you know, to go out and fill the forms quickly. I intend to fill a form, though I will state on the form I will not accept any of the funds. But I believe, as a matter of principle, as a farmer myself, I should fill out the forms so it can be recorded that Roosevelt Skerrit is indeed a farmer, and I do sell to the markets and hucksters. But I will not accept, for obvious reasons, even if I am legally and policy-wise entitled to it as a farmer, I will not accept any check from the Ministry of Agriculture that they're given out to all legitimate farmers in the country. But I really want to appeal to farmers to go ahead, because it's grant money. You don't have to prepay it. It's going to help you. You can use it for many things, including the construction of your banana sheds, because you know we have to resuscitate the banana and the planting subsectors. You know, to plant, it'll allow you to buy inputs. It'll allow you to pay for farm labor. It'll allow you to clear your lands. All those things are going to help you. So please ensure that you fill the forms as quickly as possible. And of course, the same will be done very soon with the small businesses, and the Ministry of Small Business Development is working on this as well. The Climate Resilience Execution Agency of Dominica that we have articulated as the vehicle that will assist us in implementing the whole strategy, or at least part of the strategy, to cause our country to become the first climate resilient nation in the world. I can report to the country that we have made tremendous progress on this. We have been able to put some flesh to the bones, so to speak. We've been getting tremendous support and guidance from many international agencies. The DFID of the UK government has been exceptional. The DFID has appointed a consultant to us to assist us in putting some flesh to the structure. Professor Avinash Prasad, who's been the one behind putting this together for us, has been working with the international agencies, the financial secretary, has been working very closely with them to assist us in putting some flesh to the bones. There is tremendous buy-in by the international community with this approach, and we are allowing them to also give their feedback and comments on the structure. And we're hoping that in January of 2018, the government is hoping to convene a stakeholders roundtable discussion on the creed and other interventions as a response to Maria. So there'll be all national stakeholders, and we may very well extend that to regional and international stakeholders to be part of the process, so that people can give the open feedback and suggestions on the creed and other interventions which the government, the state, should consider in moving forward with our response to Hurricane Maria, which will be a long road to recovery. But certainly we have started the process. So in the next several days, we will articulate that particular position, where we'll invite the stakeholders to be part of the consultation, so that everybody in the country will have an opportunity to give his or comments and suggestions on how do we strengthen, how do we get to near perfection the creed and other interventions which we must put in place. So that will be done in January, in the new year. So we start the new year with that consultative process to finalize our approaches to the hurricane, or responses to the hurricane. I want to thank again all of the people, both our citizens and the foreign people who are here, who've helped in a tremendous way. We're very grateful, and we'll continue to be grateful to the government of Jamaica for the presence of the Jamaica Defense Force. They had to leave. They left. All finally left yesterday. They were exceptional in the provision of services to us, and we are extending a profound gratitude to the government of Jamaica and the Jamaica Defense Force, and the people of Jamaica, for their extraordinary support and solidarity. Likewise, the Trinidad Defense Force also departed our shores, and they were exceptional, very helpful. They became part of the society, and there was really demonstration of commitment and camaraderie from the government of Trinidad and Tobago and the Defense Force of Trinidad and Tobago. Likewise, the Defense Force and Coast Guard of Barbados have been exceptional, made more than a dozen trips between Barbados and Dominica, bringing in supplies and people, exceptional. We really want to place on public record our gratitude. The RSS continue to be present, and they will be with us for an extended period of time, at least certainly towards the new year. And we're very grateful to them for their presence here, for what they've been doing here in assisting us with the security of the state and other interventions. The Belizean Defense Force, who directed here by the Prime Minister and the Governor General of Belize, they've been exceptional, and they're really working very hard in covering police stations and public buildings. I saw them working at the Vegas police station, and they did a fantastic job in a very short period of time, 3 days, to really cover the entire structure there. And I think they were painting yesterday and Monday, so the police officers are able to go back to the police station. The roof got blown off. The village council can now occupy their offices, All because of the extraordinary assistance that we received from the Defense Force of Belize and, of course, the government and people of Belize. Cuba, it continues to be present. Cuba now is synonymous to assisting us with the restoration of our electricity. And they work 7 days a week, almost 24 hours a day, helping Domlec and, of course, all of us here in Dominica to have our electricity reconnected much more quickly than is currently being done. So we look forward to that, to the continued support and so on. And the many other agencies that I said that are present, to name them would take us a very long time. But I just want to highlight from a security standpoint and also the presence of the foreign forces here in Dominica. I want to say to Dominicans, we have to continue to be patient. Let's understand that this is not a simple situation. We will all have ideas as to what should be done, how it should be done. But if you're not in the position, you may not have a clear and sincere understanding of the challenge, the task, the huge task which you have, and the amount of work that's been done behind the scenes to put these things in place and to access resources and to deal with so many different issues at the same time. So I want us to understand that we have to be patient. We'll continue to speak to you about the reconstruction of homes. We have some very concrete plans for that, and we'll be engaging the public on some of those, and we come into those into the communities to also speak to the potential beneficiaries, so that we all be part of the process of where they want to go, how we're gonna get there, what are the resources we're gonna need to get there, what is your individual role. It's only government, because we have to look to ourselves and to ensure that we can play our part in the reconstruction. So it's not only the government who has to play his part. Every single citizen in this country must play his or her part to rebuild this country. I don't think I'm in a position to dictate to anybody how anyone uses his money or her money. That's your property, and you're free under our Constitution to utilize your property in the way that you deem appropriate. But I would caution, as a fellow public servant, to my colleagues in the public service, use the double bubble, as you call it, wisely. Use it wisely. We all have many needs and wants, but you have to determine for yourself and for your family, how are you going to use this money and so on. Because if you have two of you in the public service, and your salaries are $5,000 each, with a double salary, you're talking about $20,000 your family will take home in 1 month. In the scheme of things now, it's a lot of money, and that can certainly, on the average size of a house, it can cover more than half of your house. You see, it could buy all of the doors you require for your home. It could buy all of the windows you require for your home. So let's look at things, in a very clear perspective, and to determine what our priorities now, and how do we go about utilizing the funds. And likewise, all of us who are employed out there in clearing and cleaning and in reconstruction and so forth, we have to be very cautious as to how we go about spending our monies and so forth. So I want to thank you again for your patience and understanding. It's not an easy task, but we're committed to pushing forward, and we will do all what we can with the help of the international community, who have been very helpful, who have responded to our vision in a positive way, the vision to build the first climate resilient nation in the world. And there continues to be great interest in this and offering help to assist in achieving this. And we're very grateful to everybody. And we as a country, certainly myself as the leader of the country, recognize that every country has its own challenges. So when countries and institutions give us money, as small as it is, I do express appreciation on behalf of the people of Dominica. No amount is too small for us to accept, and certainly no amount is too large, or too big for us to accept. We accept all of the contributions we make, whether it's $1 or $10 billion. We treat it the same, with a clear demonstration of appreciation and gratitude, and because gratitude is important as part of the human experience. The final point is that I will travel out of the country this week. First, we'll stop in Antigua, where I will attend the Cuba CARICOM Summit in Antigua and Barbuda. So I will represent the country at this summit, and secondly, and then I'll travel to Boston for a fundraiser hosted by the Dominica Boston Association, and the following day I will travel to Paris, where I will attend Friends of the Earth summit dealing with climate change. I'm invited by President of France, and I'll be part of a panel looking at a roadmap, looking at the next steps, reviewing what we've done since Paris, looking at the agreement, what we've done since Paris, what we need to do to position the world and position those of us who subscribe to the science of climate change, those of us who are experiencing the ravages of climate change, and to see how we can place the Paris Accord, Paris Agreement on a sound footing to be more robust and more practical in terms of an agreement. So I will participate in those discussions in Paris, and it is important. I want to commend again publicly the President of the French Republic for his leadership and for the commitment to the French Republic to the Paris Agreement, and we, as a country, we will continue to work with all like-minded people who are genuinely concerned about issues relating to climate change, and those who appreciate and empathize and sympathize with country like Dominica, who are on the front line of the effects of climate change. And that's our commitment to Mother Earth, and that's our commitment to the global community and to our citizens. I will end here, and to also say thanks to all of you and for your efforts. Let us remain positive. We can be critical, but constructively so. As you recognize, I have not been responding to any negative talk. I already have put in earplugs to this. I take note of criticism of the government and the country, and where we can make amends, we have been making. Where we can, we will. Where we cannot, then we won't. But we take note of any constructive suggestion. We examine them. We seek advice. So rest assured, we're not indifferent to any suggestions to anybody. Suggestion, once it is done in good faith and the merits in it, we'll examine it. We'll pursue it. But certainly, I do not have the luxury of time to focus on negative criticisms or criticism that are not going to help people cover the roofs or get farmers back into the farms and get businesses to be able to restock and get back to creating jobs and assisting the economy grow and getting the hotels reopened, getting our schools to be reconstructed and our water systems to be more resilient, and to give hope to the many who rely on us for hope. Unless you're moving in that direction, then you're wasting your time. I'm not sure. I have not been to a press briefing in a long time, so I'm not sure how it's done these days. Though I try to follow, I know you have questions, and so that's correct. So you, Mrs. Aaron, is the one who coordinated the questions. Yeah. So I'll pass it to Mrs. Aaron to coordinate the one or two questions or no questions which the media may have for me.